After a whole lot of back and forth, Congress finally approved the American Taxpayer Relief Act early this year, and President Obama signed it into law. That means that the country did not fall off the so-called fiscal cliff, but it also means some significant changes to taxes for individuals and for some businesses. Tax attorney Paul Jackson's here to talk about some of these changes and how they're going to affect taxpayers. First, income taxes are going up, right, Paul?
They are going up, yes.
Could you list 5 things that individuals will see as changes?
The starting point should be that the Bush tax cuts, the rate cuts that went into effect some years ago, are being made permanent for most taxpayers. However, for high income taxpayers, and that is those making more than $400,000 per year, the highest marginal rate will go from 35% to 39.6%. So there's an increase right there. Also for higher income taxpayers, and in this case it means those making more than $250,000 a year, there's a loss of the use of itemized deductions and the deduction for personal exemptions. There's a phase-out system and whatnot, but there's a loss of the ability to use those. So there's an indirect tax increase there. There's also a new tax that goes into effect this year under the Affordable Care Act, and that is a 0.9%, that is 0.9% Medicare tax on earnings above $200,000 per year. Additional tax there. And lastly, there's something, we've had a tax holiday for 2 years on 2 percentage points of our Medicare tax. That expires, and so those will go back into our tax bill.
Okay. And what will the changes mean to investments?
Well, there we've enjoyed a very low tax rate regime for a number of years, and that is a maximum rate of 15% on long-term capital gains and on most dividends that we receive. That regime is going to be continued, including the treatment of dividends as long-term capital gain, but for taxpayers making more than $400,000 per year, that highest rate will go from 15% to 20%, so an increase there. Additionally, again, the Affordable Care Act has a tax provision that comes into play this year, and that is a new Medicare tax of 3.8% that will apply to taxpayers making more than $200,000 per year and will apply to all unearned income. Unearned income would be things like rents, royalties, long-term capital gains, dividends, and those. So you can see when you combine the effect of the two changes, the highest rate on capital gains and dividends will go from 15% to 23.8%.
That's a little bit of a hike.
It's a bit of a hike.
Yes.
That's right.
What about businesses? How will business taxes change?
Well, there wasn't a lot of movement there in terms of the corporate tax rate. Some discussion of it, nothing really happened. A lot of extensions of provisions that have been in place for a few years now. The research and development credit, there was an extension of that and an enhancement of it, as a matter of fact. The ability to expense the purchase of equipment was extended and enhanced again. The new markets tax credit extended, a long laundry list of extensions and some enhancements there.
And do you think Congress is done amending the tax codes, or should we expect some more changes?
Well, they're saying they're not done. There's a lot of talk about overall tax reform, which I think would be welcome in a lot of communities, the economists especially. It's hard to tell what will happen. It'll be in the context of a broader discussion of the financial situation in the United States and the debt and deficits. However, there seems to be 2 broad emerging areas of consensus. One is that our tax rate on corporations is too high when compared to the corporate tax rates of other countries around the world. And there's a concern that that is creating a disincentive to do business here or to repatriate earnings back here. The other area is the area that's talked about every go around, and that is simplification of the tax code, because of course it's complex to the point of being almost unwieldy. And there's consensus on the concept, but when it gets down into the trenches and the idea is, well, whose deduction is going to be lost, then there's a lot of disagreement.
Right.
So who knows?
If you have questions about the American Taxpayer Relief Act or how it might affect you or your business, please call Paul Jackson or another member of the Tax Law Group at Warner Norcross and Judd. You can check us out online at WNJ.com.